it never ended. We were honestly, just amazed at how little we could do. We could float around and defend as much as we could. We could try and, smack them back here, but then, they're being pushed in through, somewhere else, so we had to run over there.
By this time, the assault support services too had gone away for the holidays. The battle was finally starting to turn in the Colonials' favor.
It was 7 light Warden tanks all pushed at once, and they all died. And then after that, it's like they just broke, and there was nothing on radar. And as soon as that happened, we just started to push. We pushed down to the crossroads south of the frontier with, I think SOM was there with us. It was SOM, and then a lot of randoms were there. We took Sentry. We took Border Watch while SOM went up north to Thunderfoot. We kind of met up at Thunderfoot. We pushed north, but that was when a final big fight happened at the Foundry. When we took the Foundry, the Wardens were just gone. It went from a constant assault to they were gone. You could tell that they weren't prepared when we got to the Foundry. I don't think they expected us to actually take back the entire region. So when we got there, the last few defenders they did have, they either had nothing or no morale. After we retook the region, SOM offered to stay behind and build, and I was thankful for that, actually. We rearmed after we retook Umbral, and then we pushed east, north of Steely Fields. We went up there, and the Wardens were pushing from that northeasternmost town. I want to say it's...
Greenfield Orchard?
Greenfield Orchard, thank you. That was their, main town, fighting a front line down there. So we just drove our tank in and just destroyed the town hall. That switched over the Warden front line to a different base where they probably had less equipment. But I just want to put it out there that the main reason Harlan's was taken back was because of Prehinto's efforts and everybody else that was there. I think that we just kind of gave them that little bit of edge they needed to finally retake the region.
And when the clock struck 12 on Christmas Day, Eastern Standard Time, day 302, the Colonials marched into Deadlands.
They all logged in on midnight East Coast time and America Eastern Standard Time on Christmas Day, and they did a massive push. So I think it's safe to say they don't believe in Santa, first of all, which is a shame. And second of all, I guess, there's really probably no one there that could, that could rally the troops or that could set their spawns, so they pushed us out.
Just 10 days later, the battle for Westgate, 8 months of bloody back and forth that took the lives of more than 150,000 soldiers on both sides, came to a close at the hands of the Shi.
The retaking of Westgate took 5 hours. At the time, there was heavy fighting going on in Longstone, so 12 of us went up to the northeast border with the Heartlands to cut their supply roads. We didn't have the manpower to have a lightning fast push, so we built up the Linville Lane road all the way to the crossroads at Gallows for 3 hours. There we were met with howitzer fire, we responded with our field artillery, and so we made it to look like we were sieging the town. In truth, we didn't actually want to take the town, if we did, Wardens would just spawn in Longstone or Kingstone, jeopardizing our main objective, which was to battle up as many Wardens until they ran out of shells and supplies in the south. When they did, the rest of Western Colonial Army was able to retake the other towns, which is once Kingstone was taken, we fired upon the Gallows Town Hall, destroying the last town the Warden held in the region. We have a gunboat patrolling the seas for any possible naval supplements, but no Warden's boats were present.
But we're at Jade Cove right now, and this will never fall. This place is a fortress. It's just too much of a choke point. There's no way this is gonna fall. There's no way the Colonials can take this over.
Alright, that's good to hear. How about
As
you,
the days
Agatha?
after
What do you
Christmas
think?
went on and on, the Colonials were advancing into the middle regions more and more, taking over half of Deadlands, the bottom part of Endless Shore, in southern Farranac.
She thinks Apollo's Landing is easier to hold than Jade Cove. Okay. Once you build the 2 safe houses, it's very hard for them to get past the 2 bridges.
With the war now turning in favor of the Colonials, their tech advantage gave them an opportunity. There were 4 rocket silos throughout Siva at this point, in Weathered Expanse, Endless Shore, Farranac Coast, and in Westgate, which the Colonials were now in full control of.
After we retake control of the Western Gate region, we immediately went to work on building defenses on the rocket sites on Iron 12 while we were building the propulsion device for the rocket.
The rocket needed a lot of resources and manpower to create. 200 basic materials, 1,000 refined materials, another 1,000 explosive materials, and 1,440 refined fuel over 3 weeks to launch cross-region. The payload would be 3 tons, capable of leveling an entire village.
As it was being filled over the next 24 hours, the Wardens tried multiple times to destroy it, with landing on Aaron 11 and Fox 12. But we were able to defend it with the cooperation with SOM, 22 ACR, KOP, and many other comrades.
Over 100 people would be involved in supplying, building, defending, and servicing the rocket, as well as the operation to get the launch code of the target itself, Spade, Mooring County. Spade was an important town to the Warden War economy, as it had their ammo factories. A naval invasion into the region with more than 5 hatchet tanks, a dozen infantry, and gunboat support would commence on the eve of day 339. And on the morning of day 340, 9:27 Sevish Standard Time, the rocket was launched.
Now, this might sound wrong, but I was curious about the destruction. I wanted to see firsthand just what had happened to the town. So I traveled to Spade under the white flag, hoping to see destruction without being shot. At first, I was unable to establish contact and was shot at every instance, but upon hopping into a pillbox and discussing things with nearby colonials, it seemed safe to exit the structure. But the way I actually gained their trust and would actually stop getting shot at was by healing one of their colonials' brethren who had been shot and was bleeding. His name was Terran? I don't know his exact name. Space Marine, something like that. Upon learning that I had healed one of their comrades, we struck up a very uneasy truce. Upon seeing the destruction, I was struck silent. Nothing was left. The vehicles were on fire. Buildings were destroyed. It was chaos. It was pure chaos.
But the chaos the Wardens experienced after the bombing of Spade would be overshadowed by what was to come in the next week. Without Spade's special ammo factory, it was only a matter of time before the Warden's stockpile would run out, and their armor put at a disadvantage. The repercussions following the Spade operation would bring about the single greatest, most controversial event to happen in the Foxhole Wars, the Jade Cove missile crisis.
Fellow Wardens, until recently the war has been but a normal feud with a stubborn yet tenacious enemy, but the last few days proved more testing than ever before. Yesterday, the WNS and the Defense Force in Farranac Coast came to make a difficult, heartbreaking decision.
Well, we were pretty light on manpower that day, but we did have a battle tank on the map, so we weren't totally inactive. We also had a gunboat, which had shelled the town down prior to it being nuked. That's why it was white.
And we're hanging out just southeast of Jade Cove, and we're at the Twin Mountains. And the only advantage we have is that they're coming to us. So we got to set up Howies quick, because we ain't got nothing in the area. So we get 2 CVs, start hammering away at those Howies, and they're making progress. I'm telling you, they were real close. At least 80 meters, I'll give you, before we got the Howies up. But 45 minutes go by, we go through those Howie shells like Fat Albert seeing a piece of cake, you know? It's just fast, man. We had nothing else to keep us sustained, no logistics, and we lose them all. And then they pushed, destroyed the Howies. We thought we were screwed. Until...
With supplies for our battle tanks dwindling due to the horrific bombing of Spade and the roaming barbaric colonial forces, our platoon was forced into a tactical retreat into the better defended northern positions.
They just fought back. Nothing. They just left. I was surprised. I was shocked. It was a miracle. They just fucking left.
And trying to attack Jade directly, well, it's all the work people put into it. It was built like a fortress. And not to mention that effort alone has been a massive drain for the people fighting.
An hour before launch, they were approaching the town and in the town.
Of Jade Cove.
At one point, they did have control of the town hall, at which point we did take it out with a gunboat. That's why it was white when the nuke hit. It was not Warden prior to the nuke hitting it. It was white after the Colonials took it, and we already destroyed their town hall.
We were up at Jade Cove. We go there, and it's a bridge. It's a bridge fight. Both bridges destroyed. Ain't looking too good.
After holding for what seemed like days, it was clear to us that the missile site to the north would fall to Colonial hands. And so, the decision came to pass. We would bomb Jade Cove.
Cerberus told us. I was in communication with him. I asked him, he said his rocket was ready, and I told him what it was. I asked him what his target was, and that's when he told me Jade Cove. At which point, I told him that was a horrible idea, that it was a town that the Warden Navy could defend, because the town hall is within gunboat range, and there's several choke points where we can use our gunboats to help defend the town. Now, maybe that day, we were not as active as we had been.
Now you got a full hour and a half that they...
Yes, and I was begging him and pleading with him and giving him other options.
For an hour and a half.
I did get coordinates on Victa, and I transmitted them not only personally to him, but in the all-world chat and in the region chat. We had people spamming it to him, so he knew he could have put the coordinates into Victa. It was an option.
This was by no means an easy thing to do. Jade Cove has been in the hearts and minds of every warden. A beautiful town to behold.
But I can't say I somewhat agree. Even if it was a waste of our time and a waste of the Warden North Star's time.
They didn't reach out to us and say, listen, there's no way we can hold it for 12 more hours. We need all your guys here. They never said that at all. To me directly. They asked me for supplies here and there, which I could not give them at the time because we were fighting a war, and I could not give them supplies to build a rocket site.
We only did the logistics for the nuke. We had no idea where the intention of launching it would be.
The WGA and the WNS outfits claim the Warden Navy attempted to disrupt the rocket's launch by force.
Yes,
can you confirm
this? Warden Navy actually fired upon the rocket 5 times with a battle tank. Unfortunately, it caused 0 damage. They were staring down his battle tank with a battle tank of their own, ready to fire on him. Then fired the first shot on the rocket. If he would have did damage to the rocket, I guarantee they would have fired on him. If there was anything we could have done to stop the launch, we would have.
But as with all beautiful things, they too must come to an end.
Stop the fucking... Do not enter the town.
That's when the historic event, being the nuking of Jade Cove, was first alerted to everybody there. And we got that 10-minute warning. And we scuttled the tank, blew it up, and just started discussing amongst ourselves what we're gonna do. Is it real? Is it fake? Is this a scam? We didn't know until.
So with a heavy heart, and with Colonials threatening to conquer Farranac completely, the WNS launched a ballistic rocket to deny the enemy such an important city, as well as take as many with it as possible, eradicating over 2 platoons worth of Colonials. The memory of the town of Jade Cove will forever be in our hearts, fueling the fires of the revenge against the Colonial threat. Praise be to Callahan.
No one ever heard of it again. We went back in the town after the missile had landed in
I'm still trying to figure everything out from yesterday because other stuff that the War Navy has been doing to me personally as a person instead of my clan.
I kind of get a little broken up about it because all those guys who died were helping me and I was helping them and we were saving the day, and they look like hell what they went through, and they're all gone. It was literally hell on earth.
It is frustration over the fact that we lost a town that we controlled, that we stockpiled, that we fought over, that we knew we could defend. When we lost that, then of course there's going to be emotions that come out. There was no actions by the Warden Navy taken upon any members of WNS or WGA after the rocket was launched.
I've been in contact with Warden Navy and they have confirmed with me that they are starting a kill on site.
We've tried clearing our names, and this incident has only made it worse from the WN, and now that we have to clear from the entire Wardens. I'm personally switching to Colonials for the sake of my own mental health, because I've been dealing with non-stop personal attacks from WN and some other people from the Wardens.
I heard there were more bombings later on at Spade. I think that was before actually. Spade, there was Ogmaran and Sun's Hollow. So very sorry for all the men and women who died fighting.
Well, there's a difference there. There's a difference, okay? You can bomb Spade because Spade's a major ammo factory for the enemy, and they're killing our guys with that ammo. So I think that was justified. Ogmaran, same thing, was a big base for operations. Jade Cove used to be a civilian area. Now it's gone.
So, as a tactical location and one that is, place where so many people put dedicated countless hours into, I do think that the nuking of Jade Cove was a bad decision.
We will, for the rest of this war, be known as the people who could not get along with the infighting that they have.
And I just want to let it be clear that I rationally gave him at least 10 reasons why not to nuke Jade Cove before I lost my cool and told Mint or any of my guys to stop them at all costs. But the Warden Navy is not going to quit, and we're going to keep fighting on, and I want to tell all the Wardens not to give up, to overcome and keep fighting, because we have better teamwork, and if we keep working together, we will come back and bounce back.
Not much is known after the fact in terms of actual map movement or operations. The war maps were in their infancy and went out of operation especially after Jade. Stories shared to the newswire were few and far between. Wardens surrounded on Sickle Hill, the failed bombing of Hermit's Rest. What we do know, however, upon conversations with veterans of War 19 on both sides, their accounts remain roughly the same.
When we arrived at the latch, the situation was miserable. Warden infantry was scarce in numbers and the equipment was even scarcer.
The situation here is dire at Whitechapel, but I think our morale is holding pretty well despite the circumstance.
While we were starting to retreat, one of our light tanks blew up immediately from a shell that headed to the side, most likely from a battle tank.
We moved to Shattered and engaged the Colonial forces there. 3 battle tanks hit us the whole thing. The BT was called Little Death. We used that. We lost her after engaging what we think was a Colonial tank ace at the end of Shattered Expanse. At the end of the day, we lost the war when Jade fell. Not because it damaged our logistics, shells or anything, but because it felt like, what if what we didn't matter? Oh, that's enough talking for now. I have to check on the map. My binoculars keeping them informed. Hope this gets to the CVN people. Is there any left to receive it at the end of the day?
After Jade Cove, there seemed to be a deep well where the morale of the Wardens once resided. The Colonials simply pushed after that. No real tactical battle plans were drawn. Our commanders pointed in a direction and said go. Tactics were made on the fly. A lot of bodies got stacked in the crossfire between both lines. Over 300 days of holding on by tooth and nail paid off. The Legion took the opportunity and it seized almost all Warden territory.
On day 451, the end to the war came as a relief to most.
This morning, I had another talk with the Sievish diplomatic envoy. Both the Valayan and the Sievish peoples have now put down their arms and our armies agreed to demobilize, leaving the region of the Farranac Coast to the endless shore a demilitarized zone. We regard the agreement signed last night and the Siva Valley Agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples to never go to war with one another again. My good friends, for the 19th time in our history, a senator has returned from the north to bring peace with honor. I believe it is a peace for our time. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Go home and get a nice, quiet sleep.
Citizens of Siva, do not be fooled by this colonial propaganda. The heathen scum may have pushed us back to the mountains, but I assure you, brothers and sisters of Callahan, with the start of this new year marks the end of colonial oppression. While they grow drunk on their so-called victory and celebrate, our death riders have been hard at work liberating internment camps. Our engineers are digging sapping lines, and our empire once again collects itself. They think us mean. We will educate them on underestimating our devotion as the true followers of Callahan. To anybody listening, death to the heretic. Long may Callahan's empire endure.
The war lasted 451 days, the bloodiest 15 months in the Foxhole Wars by far. While conflicts in the Foxhole Wars normally amounted 1 to 500,000 casualties, 19 totaled a staggering number. $1,723,082 dead on both sides. The next war, while being the longest conflict in the Foxhole Wars with 650 days, has less casualties than 19, and not until Conflict 30 does one see the numbers get anywhere close. 19 saw a new generation of soldiers, who lived with even more weapons to wage war with towns becoming even more militarized. All of this in the shadow of the Ballistic Rocket. The effects of the Jade and Spade rockets fostered teamwork for some, paranoia for others, but the stories of Foxhole's thousands of players, of operations, of last stands, prisoners of war, of victories and massive defeats, of courage and desperation, of friendships made, live on.